Hi, Cancer. The amount of days that it has taken to get here. Oh my God, you know that feeling of how all these different things need to get done before you can even do the one thing you really want to do, let alone do the thing where you have to be creative? All of that times Mercury retrograde in Virgo season. And what we're looking at, excuse me, is a month where you'll do anything to not have to look at you. You want to argue? You can argue about the past. You want to deflect? You can criticize others. But if you really want to get something good out of the season and not just circular arguments with people you actually love, even though right now you may be treating them like you hate them. If you actually want something good to come out of you for once having a Virgo critical eye, it would be turning that eye on yourself without hating yourself. It would be noticing how you sit, how you stand, how you walk, how you come across. What does your voice sound like? What are all those nonverbal cues and what do they say about you? I never do that. I don't know why I did that. I meant to. What do they say about you? Because if you want, we can get stuck. We can be stuck, stay stuck. We can have those ego arguments. Remember when you did this? Remember between the 15th and the 18th, all you want to do is think about all those times in the past when someone specific hurt your ego, hurt your pride. Remember when you did this to me? Now, fortunately or unfortunately, if you were focusing on yourself, this same energy that is so circular could be used to create a lot of forward motion, dynamism in your work. But those first three cards, let's look at them. So what Cancer has a tendency to do when in a stressful situation is to create pools, okay? These are pools of understanding, pools of misunderstanding, pools made when you jump to conclusions, pools made when you don't get your way, pools you made when you felt abandoned by someone, treason level shit, right? Because they're your person, they're your family. So if something happened to you and they did something to you, it's like unforgivable. How could you? You have broken a sacred treaty, a sacred bond. But I'm still here. But I'm not getting my way because you still did the thing wrong already all the way back then. So even though there's no way for me to get my way, which is I wish this thing had never happened, I'm still going to be mad that I'm not getting my way. And anyone who is jumping from one foot to the other trying to appease you in this is going to lose their minds, because you want them to make you feel better about something that even if they were to travel into the past and actually make the thing go away, that's not what you're mad about anymore. You're not mad that the thing happened. You're mad that in the present moment, you can't erase things from the past that you wish hadn't happened on command. It's not just with this one person. It's not just, you're in a state of agitation about a lot of things from your past. So don't make it about this one person and what they may have done to disappoint you, what they may have done wrong, because of course everyone has done things wrong and everyone has disappointed everyone before. But the way it's like a national tragedy with you guys, because, you know, it's like indicative of this and indicative of that, and it's all about family and it's all about love and it's all about, you know, and if you do that, what does that say about you? All those Cancerian musings and all those Cancerian logic traps that I know so well as a Cancer rising. Now, as a Cancer rising, this Jupiter retrograde is hitting your house of work, okay? Jupiter is the ruler of your house of work. And the retrograde is hitting you in your house of career. So everything is very slow. So also this here is Cancer rising now. It's that Jupiter retrograde in your house of career. So it's making you feel like, oh, it's just an uphill battle and I'm not getting anything out of this. And I thought it was going to be easier than this. I thought it was going to be better than this. And then you're going to, you can easily let that feed into another pool of despair. Oh my God, what's going to happen money-wise? What's going to happen debt-wise? What's going to happen tax-wise? Now, let's talk about these pools. These pools are created by whatever different stimulus. It's a stress you can't handle. It's an emotion you can't get over. It's a hurt you can't forgive, but you also can't let go of the person, so you keep reminding them of it and opening the wound. Whichever pool, maybe you have many pools going at the same time. The point is you create these pools and you isolate yourself in them and then you pretend you're drowning. Now, we've talked about this many, many, many times, that you do this, okay? Now, here's the thing. When you do this, there are actually people that you can pull into these pools that will drown in them. You won't. You'll do this for 3-4 weeks and then you'll get out of it. But the people that you pull in with you aren't as lucky as you because they're not made for this kind of thing that you do. But the most important part about these pools that you create, these little tide pools, is that they're isolated. You don't let people help you. You don't tell people what's going on. It's a big part of what will be in 3 weeks, Libra season. You need to let people help you. Of course, right now you're in the thick of nobody should have to help me. I should be perfect. I should be able to do this all on my own. Why do I even need any help? Why didn't I just snap my fingers and all of this was already done? I'm so imperfect. Which is how Virgo energy affects Cancerians. It is so much the antithesis of what we are. There is absolutely nothing linear or linearly productive about Cancerian thoughts, feelings, actions, or careers. But in Virgo season, we do try our best to do the most respectable, Virgo impression that we can. And we get focused, we get focused on money, we get focused on home, we start to focus on how much we don't have, how much we should have. As soon as we start to think or talk about the future, all these different fears of ours come up, right? And then we have this full moon today. And this full moon is like, okay, what have you done so far? Are you going to worry? Is it time to worry about life? Is it time to bring up all these old wounds? Because the moon wants you to bring them up and heal them in a productive way. The moon wants you to get over this feeling of being overwhelmed and get back to work. The moon wants you to understand that you have to look at these things without blaming other people for them, without taking it out on anybody else. And here I have written, I'm sorry I was moving away from the phone for a second. Here I have written, leave the moon, your feelings, out of it. It can be a season of feelings, sure. But these feelings are old. And although you may not have gotten the answers you want or the healing that you want for that matter, belaboring this point is not going to help. Truly, what has happened is over, and no matter what the person or the people said or did, it wouldn't heal you. because it's not what they said or did that's bothering you. It's your inability to have detected it before it happened and now to be able to let go and move on from it. There is a deep element in Cancerians right now of being angry with themselves for not being able to kick something or leave something behind or stand up for themselves, or some larger existential conversation that has to do with dignity and pride and agency as a person. Those of you who have found a way through perhaps celibacy, through study, through yoga, through martial arts, to subdue or sublimate that intensely sexual part of yourself, and have been able to make linear strides in these other areas, it may bolster your self-esteem. It may give you a little bit more to work with. But this idea of isolating and going into despair and using your feelings to kind of beat yourself up after the Virgo energy gives you the rundown of what you need to fix or what you need to do or what needs to be capitalized on. There are a lot of ways that you can react to that energy, but for Cancerians, for you, it can seem too personal. It can seem like your particular magic is not being taken into account. Why do I have to do it this way? But maybe if you indulge in these other things that are more linear, you'll see that there is some merit in it. And I think that's the real key. It's something very subtle in Virgo season, but that's the real key for you, is that even in the things that are abrasive and grate you, and even in the things that Virgos are saying to you that are obviously really irritating, in this, this fuckboy card that always comes up in Virgo season for you, because that's how they act towards you in their season. Even then, there is a way to transform that energy into something positive. It doesn't have to be this abrasive, just for the sake of being hurtful experience. The criticism doesn't have to be said just for the point of being said. Of course, that's maybe why it's being said, but you have the ability and the choice, much more importantly, to translate that however you want. So people can say things however they want, but if you're taking what they're saying as, let me give you a little insight into how you could make your product better. And in this case, in the way you're continuing to evolve and look at yourself is as a product, how do I make this product better? Well, if you're going to be around people who are, regardless of how you treat them, and that's a big takeaway here, you can't expect people in Virgo season, but for the rest of the year even, to treat you how you are treating them. Okay? But if you are able, regardless of how people are treating you, to take what they're saying and doing as a learning experience and not take personal what they're actually saying and doing. Of course, obviously, don't let anyone disrespect you, abuse you, anything like that. But if people just want to do that, but people don't do that in Virgo season. They're real sneaky. So if people are like sneak dissing you or whatever they're doing, or they're trying to call you out of your name about something really important, whatever it is, because in Virgo season, people go too far. People say really terrible things. You have the choice to completely neutralize that by using it as an intensely concentrated learning experience, a focus group on who you are and how you present, and if nothing else, what it is about you that makes people project onto you, what it is about you that triggers people's own inadequacies, their own fears. Okay, so as a Cancer rising, I can tell you, whenever I meet someone who has extremely low self-esteem, they always have the same criticism about me. Oh, she thinks too highly of herself. Well, yeah, of course, compared to you, yeah, of course I do. That makes total sense to me, right? So you can see in anything in the way that people are reacting to you, that what it is about you that's bringing something forward out of them. And instead of getting lost in their experience or whatever they have to say about you or to you, if you're looking beyond the mundane kind of banal existence that we all live, and look at the larger theme of what they're actually saying and what is being brought forth from your presence, like what is your energy bringing forth out of them, that's a really interesting conversation. It's also a conversation that you can make a lot of money having. Okay, let's be real. The more you are refining this image, which is a really big part of this reading, of your month, of your year, and it comes up, you know, in the midst of all this other stuff that you want to handle, that you have all these feels about. But honestly, nothing's more important than this right now. Like I said, how you walk, how you talk, what's your posture, how you sit, what's the tone of your voice. You know, when someone doesn't know, that when you don't know you're being looked at, what do you look like? What does your clothing say about you? What does your everything say about you? What I tell you, it took me 3 days to get things to a place where I could sit down and actually do this reading. That's fucking deep. Because I could feel the energy so strong. Everything has to be a certain way. Everything has to be a certain way. And what's so funny is last night, after 3 days of working on everything, I had my family come over for a little while, and immediately they noticed a difference in everything. You know, you, me, we're all coming into this time as Cancer risings, where as Cancer suns, Cancer rising, Cancer moon, where, you know, you're taking on a new something. You're taking on a new goal. You have the next act, and there's a persona for that act. There's a new shell for that act. Oh yeah, you knew that was coming, right? So it's time once again to refine that persona. What's the next goal? And therefore, how do we reverse engineer that goal back into the person we need to be right now to reach that goal? Who is that person now, who in the future is going to reach that goal that you can see, you can hear it, you can picture it, you had the vision already, you've seen it. Now, during Mercury retrograde, this theme for Cancerians of an old idea coming back to life and being able to make you enormous amounts of money, that's in your astrology, but it's also very much here. Okay? Now that you can think about in terms of this idea of, you know, this new goal, this new shell, this new person. So an old idea comes back to life, something you can make a lot of money at. So you put that out there. This thing, I really want to do it, or this thing, I can see myself doing it. Boom. Okay? Now, if you were to work from that point backwards, how does that person look? How does that person dress? How does that person smell? How does that person talk? How does that person walk? Who do they hang out with? Who do they not hang out with? Where do they go? Where do they not go? What do they spend their time doing? What do they not spend their time doing? Reverse, 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 reverse. Mercury retrograde in Libra, perfect time to do image work like this. And all the way back to here. Now, once you get back here, well, that's your new shell. Whatever you figured out, walking backwards and taking those steps, whatever you took away, whatever you added, when you get back to the present, that's your new shell. That's your new way forward. Back to life, baby. Now, in the extended, we are going to be talking about this being overwhelmed to the point of not working, where you feel like so overwhelmed by not working that then you get overwhelmed by all the work you haven't done, that then gets you overwhelmed that you're not, they so overwhelmed that you're not working, that then you get more overwhelmed because now there's even less work that's been done. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to shuffle through for that. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about these old wounds and about this thing that we were just saying about who you are and what you are and how to really clearly communicate that to the people in your life as you take on this new shell. It's one thing to talk about, yeah, you got a new shell coming up, it's like this, base it on your goal. But how do you then translate that into like how you look, how you walk, how you talk, how you dress? How do you introduce the people in your life that have known you forever, because you're a Cancer, the people in your life have known you forever. How do you reintroduce yourselves to them without making it like a thing, without it being cringy, without it being embarrassing? How do you get to come back to life and still be palatable and still fit into the society around you that you've created, but it really does kind of become a noose around your neck sometimes, right? So you got these like zip ties on your claws, and we don't know how they got there. We don't know what happened. Mercury retrograde's like, let's work backwards from where you wish you were. And, you know, miraculously, those ties are cut. But now you got your claws again. The first thing you want to do is get rid of this old shell and get a new shell on. Let's see if I can beat this metaphor to death. And before you know it, here you are, instead of claws zip tied on the way into the boiling water, you know, no zip ties, big ass new claws, big ass new shell. Jupiter retrograde, God knows what they're doing in that shell, coming up with the next mastermind step in their mastermind scheme to take over the world. Probably, inshallah, probably. We'll talk about that in the extended. We'll talk about, you know, the extendeds are becoming more of a thing where I want to not like necessarily always get into the more existential thing, but the things that become more like life coaching wise things, or things that become more about like, so how do you approach that? So one of the things that comes up in your astrology that we definitely need to talk about, and it's, you can see it here with the elderly person, is that Cancerians, sun, moon, rising, we're all going through a bit of a shift when it comes to responsibility with our parents. Either we have to take on more responsibility, we find ourselves being the parent, we have to do more for our parental obligations, so we have less time for ourselves. It could be any version of that. But we are, in many ways, regardless of our age, moving into a position of authority in the family that we didn't have before, or that we honestly didn't think we would be asked to have. But we should have seen it coming. So things like this we'll talk about in the extended. The more existential things, we'll shuffle through for those questions and see what comes up. And I'm just going to go right through and keep going. Okay? Love you.